Welcome back to the Oshner Andrews Sports Medicine Institute podcast studio up here on Veterans Memorial Boulevard, right next door to my guy, Matt Bowers, state-of-the-art Ford dealership. Make sure if you're buying a car to buy local and buy that from Matt. And, of course, this is another episode of NewOrleans.Football presented by PJ's Coffee. Last game preview of the season. Thank God. This thing is almost mercifully over. We're about to get into the off-season topics, be able to move on from pretending like these games still carry weight in anything, just kind of playing out the string here. Screw you, Roger, for week 18. I'm Nick Underhill. That's Mike Triplett. That's Brandon Thomas.
Let's get into our first topic presented by Aaron Rose. Like you said, the roller coaster of up and down this season. We talked last show about the decisions that have to be made.
When were the ups?
Week one and week two.
Okay.
Week one and week two. That's you said that was
Rizzi clogged the toilet and they won. Against
there were some
the
ups in
Falcons.
there.
All right.
There were some ups in there. But
Taysom Hill, Offensive Player of the Week.
we went
Remember that?
long
four
time
of their 5
ago.
wins.
But
But
to say, to me, since week 2, it's felt like the Tower of Terror. Like it doesn't. I wouldn't call it a roller coaster. It's the Tower of Terror.
Well, that's ups and downs. That's
but it's
literally
both.
what that ride is.
It's pauses on the way down, really. Like it is a.
we're experiencing technical difficulties.
Yeah, it's
you
a
guys
crash.
are stuck in
It's
the
a,
middle
it's
of
a slow. It's a crash.
Yeah, for sure. But we talked last episode about how there's a lot of decisions that have to be made going into this offseason. I think this is one of the most important off seasons for the trajectory of the team going forward, kind of in the last good bit of years. But how aggressive do you think Mickey Loomis will be, the guy in the big chair, the dude making all pretty much of the decisions?
I don't know if this should have been a factor in any decision making of firing Dennis Allen midseason, but one thing that I didn't think about is as soon as you fire the head coach, you are standing out. You're painting a bullseye in your chest and you're painting a bullseye in your back, and you're saying, "Everyone, look at me now." I mean, Mickey Loomis has never been talked about so much by the fan base than in the last 6. Like as soon as Dennis Allen was out of here, all targets were set on Mickey Loomis. I think his popularity is lower than ever. I think like everybody like now blaming him for everything that's gone wrong with this franchise, and Dennis Allen's a distant memory has gone on, and he's got to get this right. Yeah, he's got to get this right. Now, I'm not going to give him any benefit of the doubt because this team has made nothing but wrong decisions in recent years. But the one thing I will say is I think everyone is terrified. Mickey Loomis always does the easy thing. Mickey Loomis always does the comfortable thing. The only time we've definitely seen that is the Dennis Allen hire. And we know Mickey Loomis's MO is, I want to have a consistent continuity, stability like the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's kind of hard to argue with that theory when you are winning at least 7 games for, almost 20 straight years. They had the best record in football for a while. They had Sean Payton and Drew Brees. Continuity and stability should be a goal. That better not be the goal now. Like, we're going to find out now. When he hired Dennis Allen, he wrongfully wanted continuity and stability and thought things were good. The front office, the ownership, everybody better believe it now. Clearly, they need a different approach now. The last time this happened was 2005. They hired Sean Payton. They overhauled, half the roster. They made front office changes. I hope they're like, yeah, this is different than the last 20 years of continuity and stability. I hope so. So I'm at least going to reserve judgment, not give benefit of the doubt, not say we know he's going to make the right choice based on old moves, but I hope it's different. I hope it doesn't feel like they're going for continuity and stability this time.
2 things, just the push back just a little bit. Like I think Mickey would be getting dragged through the mud if DA was still in place, and it might even be worse because then it would just look like
that's true.
It would look like inaction, and I think he would still be taking all them bullets. But he's definitely out in front more so than he ever has been. And I think for people that are nervous, I think in their thought process, it's justified to be nervous because Mickey's made, I would say 3 major decisions. One was, like, since he's been here, one was hiring Sean Payton, absolute home run. One was hiring Dennis Allen, definitely a strikeout or at least a pitch that was fouled off and caught to end the game. Not a good decision. And I think you could pair in the third one is like the decision not to fire him in season. What was another one, and that was kind of done by somebody else. He might have eventually got to it. I think it might have deteriorated to a point where like it would have had to have happened, but in that moment, I don't think so. So I get it. Like I get the nervousness, but
absolutely. If you're not nervous, who couldn't be nervous right now? Yeah.
There's one hit, one miss in the hiring department. I understand the logic behind the miss, though. So, I don't know. Well, I think he absolutely has to get this one right. Yes. As far as being aggressive, like I think they're going to try to get a good coach. I hope it's somebody on the upswing and not the downswing trying to retread their way back to things. I hope that they're kind of aggressive in trying to turn the page to something new. But I honestly don't know the answer to any of these things, though. But I do think that there's like an element of maybe like overstating the level. Like there's this like belief that everything has been criminally incompetent for forever, and I think that's a little bit overstated. But of course I understand how it gets there, and it always gets there. They act like. You go read Patriots stuff, and they act like the Patriots are like the signature of incompetence in the NFL. And it's like, well, it's only been that for like 2 years, and they're trying to find their way out of the previous era. And it's really hard to be the Packers. It just really is. Most teams aren't. So, like, I get it. I understand where people are coming from. I understand why they're uncomfortable. I don't necessarily agree with the high level of discomfort, but I'm definitely looking at them like, yo, you have to get this right. I think everything you're judged on is on this hire now because you had one good one bad one. If you don't lead them out of it, it kind of the narrative is going to be what it is, and you missed twice. And I just don't think that you can. I mean, for multiple reasons, you can't miss twice. The legacy being the least important one of them, but the organization can't afford to miss. You miss again here, like you're on that path to
Jacksonville Jaguars territory.
Yeah, Browns. Lions before Campbell. Like it's tough to get out of that.
Yeah, look, the other reason for nervousness is, and this is something that's true about Mickey Loomis. He said it a million times. Is he doesn't believe in the radical change that you see around the NFL a lot. He thinks the teams like I won't put the teams in his mouth, but we know who they are: the Jets and the Panthers and the Raiders and the Browns that are firing head coaches every 2 or 3 years, switching quarterbacks every 2 or 3 years. He absolutely doesn't think that's the model. So. I think every one of us here, I know a majority of the fan base, I know analysts who look at the league think, all right, Saints, it's time to do one of those pretty extensive rebuilds and not try to keep a lot of the players, a lot of the core together and make small changes. And we don't know if he'll ever do that. And I can't say for sure that that's the right path because that leads to you're in a bind. You talk about the Patriots. When you lose Belichick and Brady, when you lose Peyton and Breeze, there's not a lot of easy ways out of that, whichever direction you take. But, I mean, when we say how aggressive, he's also, this is a factor. He's 69 years old. These are going to be the last hires and major decisions he probably makes to set up the organization for whatever goes beyond him. So we are all wondering, will he make front office structure changes? Would he bring on anyone that's like a young GM that's like a protege? Would he make any changes in the college scouting department, the personnel department? Would the coaching hire have to do that? I'm just very, very curious how he approaches this. The one thing I will say, though, is we do know about all his head coaching hires. There have been so few of them. We judge him on Sean Payton and Dennis Allen. I think his front office hire track record has been pretty good. And I think, Ryan Pace and Terry Fontenot came from within the organization, became GMs elsewhere. He empowered them enough to get that kind of credit to get GM jobs elsewhere. Hired Jeff Ireland, who he never worked with before, who was a dynamic personality, who got all the credit for all that draft success over him, so he wasn't afraid to hire him. Hired Dave Ziegler this year, who he had never worked with, who came from different organizations this year. So Kai Harley, he had never worked with before. He runs and a lot of those guys have had success. So I don't think he, like the only notion of he only hires people he's worked with before, that he's comfortable with, that he's familiar with, that'll say yes to him. He's shown that he's willing to hire outside of the organization. So I hope that is the case again this time.
Yeah, the yes man thing, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, like he hired Sean Payton, he probably like shit on ideas for 15 years. Like I don't understand where that one came from. But yeah, they gotta get it right. They gotta figure it out. They gotta make the right hires. I mean, look, everything we've seen though, like we can say he did all this stuff, but everything in this last regime was comfort. Like I can't sit here and act sit here and act like it wasn't. Like
that's what they got wrong this time, no doubt about it.
Everything was comfort. So if there is a perception of yes men and all that, so like everything, like the old act is the old act now. We're in the current act. So like whatever they're doing now, you got to see it. So
right.
I can't sit here and say all this, like, you know, I think a lot of people are wrong, but I can't sit here and say that those opinions are unfounded. Like there is evidence saying that, like, okay, they did this, man, they made him keep the staff. Like, even though they didn't, it looks like they did. They didn't go out and, you know, it felt kind of rigged from the beginning to hang on to the past, the continuity. They said continuity up there. So they wanted something comfortable. I just hope that they got uncomfortable enough in that living environment that it goes back to what we saw kind of in their DNA before, and we'll see how it goes from there. But, you know, we'll see. I mean, we'll see.
That adage of if you're not moving, you're losing, that's right now. You have to be moving. You have to stir the pot, keep things fresh. But you brought up an interesting point earlier about the Packers being an organization who has had turnover but still has been good. Is there any other example that you could think about of a transition point where the team really didn't have too much of a drop-off when they changed quarterbacks, when they changed head coaches, when they changed like kind of some of the internal cogs and pieces?
Hold on. Sorry. Just to go back to a previous point too, just about like not wanting to fire coaches and that, though, like I'm okay with firing Lovie Smith if he's not the right guy in 1 year. Like those are the decisions you have to make. And if we're talking about being aggressive, like that's the aggressiveness I think you need to see in this as you go forward. If there is another mistake, you can't just sit on it for 3 years. Like make a move early, kind of, okay, this isn't working, be ready to move on and go on from it. Like there's more than one way to get to success. And like the patience thing, patience is only warranted if it pays off. Like all this patience on DA did not pay off in the end. No. So that is bad patience. That's not good patience. Like if you hire Lovie Smith and Lovie Smith, oh man, we really screwed this up. Don't sit on it for 3 years because the Steelers do. Like cut bait and go to the next guy, and that can lead you to immediate success. So like the aggressiveness, I don't think we see that change. I don't think we see that DNA change to where like they would, okay, what if they screw up this next head coach? Will he get 3 years? Yeah, he will. Like he isn't just going to get one. Like it isn't like I don't think we'll see any of that kind of change. And I think there should be a willingness towards some of that. And if there are things wrong in the front office, like there should be a willingness to kind of move on from that. And like that's the stuff I'm waiting to see, is if there's anything up top that changes, or if it's just like, you know, it does feel, until we see something different, it does feel like I am worried about settling into something familiar.
No, you're exactly right. I'm as curious about what's the approach as I am what's the hire. Like you're probably going to get the hire wrong. I mean, what do the odds say? What like 2 out of 8 every cycle are good hires, and the other 6 are bad, or don't have success for a number of reasons. Like you could hire the best coach in this cycle, and it's possible they could not have success with what they're presented with the current state of the Saints. But I am way more curious almost about the approach than who they actually wind up with. But to answer your question on teams, everyone that comes to my mind is getting the quarterback right. You know, I mean, the Chiefs go from playoffs with Alex Smith to dynasty with Patrick Mahomes because they got the quarterback right. But yeah, through multiple coaches is a good question. I mean, there's ones that were built and handed off to the successor. George Seifert won a Super Bowl after Bill Walsh. Jim Caldwell went to the Super Bowl after Tony Dungy. But sustained success through multiple coaches. The Packers have done it because they keep getting quarterback right. That's the other big piece of this for sure.
Yeah. No.
What do we expect to happen on Monday? Does everyone get let out of their contract? What do they do?
I think the way this normally happens is Darren Rizzi, unless they're guaranteeing him the job, I think they have to tell him you're allowed to interview for other jobs. And I think they usually tell coordinators they're allowed to interview for other jobs. Like, I don't think they would bar them from acting as if they're free agents, right?
I would hope not. I mean, I don't think they will, but
I don't see what the benefit is in telling them no. Like, let them explore. Let them see what's up.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. But talking about coordinators and things like that, we're going into our next topic presented by Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency. What should the NFL think about Klint Kubiak and his staff?
Here's another guy that I'm probably going to be too kind to, but I don't know. I mean, it's just, this is every year of Klint Kubiak's NFL tenure as an offensive coordinator. It's like, it's such incomplete information to judge off of. Like, I cannot forget how impressed I was just by like how good of a plan they had for an offseason, how they got everyone on board, how they taught everyone that plan, how their plan made sense, how it injected enthusiasm into the offensive line and the quarterback and Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill. And when those guys were all together, it also worked.
Yeah.
And we only had 2 weeks of evidence of that. And no, they have not been able to make things work with 3 missing offensive linemen or 3 missing receivers or a missing quarterback. I am concerned about the fact that, second half adjustments, even early in the season against Philadelphia, we haven't seen if the original script doesn't work during a game. I don't think he's adjusted well in a game. I still feel like he's pretty good coach, and it's a pretty good staff, and it's a pretty good plan. And I think he probably deserves another opportunity in this league at some time, but this is 3 times now. He had 1 year in Minnesota before the head coach got fired. He had 6 weeks in Denver before the head coach got fired, and now he had 1 year here, and the head coach is going to get changed. And, it's tough to come back from 3 shots at it.
There aren't enough coordinators in the league for him probably to get blocked out, and someone could justify it the staff got blown out in Minnesota and the staff got blown out in New Orleans and everybody was hurt and all that stuff. So I won't be shocked to see him get another chance somewhere. I just don't think he should be here. I've seen enough.
That's fine.
I've seen enough. Sure. It's not even against him. I think if you're just gonna try to hit again, try to hit where there's more upside. I think the idea of it was good. I think there's things that he does very well, but I don't think you're getting to the moon with him. And if I'm going at it again, I want to try to get to the moon. And I've said this a million times before. If I'm hiring a head coach and he's a defensive-minded head coach or a leader of men type or even a special teams coach, if he's not coming here with I can bring this offensive coordinator and he doesn't have that in his binder when he goes to the meeting, then I do not want him because that means nobody believes in him. And if no one believes in him, why am I believing in him? So I want somebody that's tied in, has a staff, has a vision. This is how I'm doing it, and this is how I'm getting it done. And if you aren't doing that, let me find somebody else. I don't want it to look like that. I don't want it to feel anything like the last time. If we're replaying this 3 years later, why are we making another Scream movie? It doesn't make sense to me at that point. Have a new plot. They had a new plot in the Scream reboot. That made sense.
Okay.
But if you're just remaking the movie 3 years later and it's here's Spider-Man, but it's Homecoming, let's get out of here with it. It doesn't make sense to me. So just start over. I don't need to see the same story with a couple slight changes and a slightly different cast. Okay, Garfield, Tom Holland, it's the same dude. Let's just do something else or wait a while to redo it. But it does not make sense to me to just do the same thing all over again.
We are a shadow movie, TV, music podcast for sure. No doubt about it. Tobey Maguire, go Spider-Man. No question about it. But actually funny that you went down that road because I'm relating it back to music. His first 2 singles, game 1 and game 2 of the season, fire. Hot. On TikTok, on the radio, on YouTube, all of that. But then you get to the album and you start listening to it, you're like, man, this is actually kind of bad. Now granted, his engineer, his laptop broke in terms of Derek Carr getting hurt, different things happen. It might be time for him to change labels and see kind of what else he can do in that certain sense. Because it's like those 2 singles were hot. We'll never forget it. 91 points in the first 2 weeks. Killer. We all remember those times, good times. But weeks 3 through 8, 94 points total. Weeks 9 through 7, 134. Ups and downs. Little baby, maybe we don't need an album right now. You get in the lab, change your beats up, change your flow up. That might be just what's best for everybody across the board.
So week 1 was Ice Ice Baby. Week 2 was Go Ninja Go, and then he had nothing left.
Bro,
outside of my range, man.
No, look, and look, I wrote this topic, and I said, what should the NFL think about him? Because the Saints shouldn't think he's so great that they're we're keeping him no matter who the next head coach is. No, obviously not. But we talked to him, and he was pretty open. He didn't want to think about his job future, or whatever. But we had a good conversation with him yesterday. And I'm just thinking, man, it's so tough for these guys who are tied to. And we talked about that when you choose to go work for Dennis Allen, who's already on the hot seat. You might only get 1 year in it, and you really end up in limbo. I think what'll happen with him. And first of all, you said it was just 2 weeks. I also am lumping in May through August because
Great
I
times.
loved I was buying the stock May through August before we ever saw him on the field, plus weeks 1 and 2. But obviously, you're right; it's gone super cold. But I think what happens is there's so many people running this system around the league. Maybe places where a Matt LaFleur gets a job, Mike McDaniel gets a job, a Kyle Shanahan gets a job. He probably gets to go work for someone who's running his system. One of those offensive coordinator jobs where the head coach calls the plays. I think he'll find new life in this league. I think Dennison and Benton. Yeah, exactly.
He checked all the boxes. Like it was the right idea, the right pedigree, the right profile, the right lineage, the right going back to grad school in San Francisco. And I don't even know that you can necessarily, I don't think it was a bad decision. I think he's a fine offensive coordinator. He's probably one of the, 12 of these dudes get fired every year. He's definitely in the top half of the league.
There were 16 a couple of years ago.
I just think if I'm shooting, I want to just let me shoot again and see if I can hit a little bit higher. And if you don't, who cares? Keep shooting.
Just
yeah.
Get them up there. That's all you need. But to finish out the question, it was and staff. So, kind of, what were your impressions about the offensive
That was
staff?
one of my favorite things about man, they came in this is what Nick is saying about this is what you hope the next head coach has on his staff. We've talked about our plans. We're all on the same page. We've got a good plan moving forward. I want these guys working for me. That's one of the things that impressed me for the staff. Rick Dennison, John Benton, Andrew Janocko. And like everybody said, they're all on the same page. What's that?
Keith
Williams was a great hire. They're all on the same page. They're all speaking the same language. It makes sense to all of us. The receivers know what the quarterbacks are thinking. The quarterbacks know what the running backs are thinking. The offensive line knows what the tight ends are thinking. This was a cohesive staff. I'd hire them all as a group. If I'm hiring them somewhere.
Even thinking about what Rick Dennison and John Benton did for Trevor Penny.
No, they did a good job. I think Keith Williams did a great job. I'd like to keep him maybe. I think that, getting Kevin Austin in the viability in an NFL season is a huge plus. Got Valdez-Scantling up to speed pretty quick, even though he's kind of tailed off the last couple of weeks as people have come to realize that all you have to do is stop him to stop their passing game.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I think all same opinion. I think they're all pretty good. I think Rattler looks pretty decent too, which is a credit to Janocko and just the ability to develop. So I think that they've done a good job with, probably the least talented available offensive roster in the NFL. They've done a pretty okay job with it. It's just, like I said, I would just shoot somewhere else. And my whole opinion on all of them could be completely different if they had a completely healthy team the whole year. I say that saying that it's just kind of, I think one of the things that works against them, in my opinion, is just general exhaustion with the process.
Yeah.
And I just want to see a new process.
Speaking of which, I screamed to the rooftops throughout last season, beginning of this offseason, before they hired, when they hired, that the disappearance of the run game was the biggest thing that brought the team down. They were 31st in yards per run last year. I'm seeing where they are now, rushing yards per game. It's been improved all year long, although it's quieted down a little. They've slipped down to 14th in yards per game. They were top 10 most of the season, 13th in yards per play. But then we were very surprised. I know you pointed this out. Where did the play action go? Because they've had success on play action. We thought that was going to be a huge part of their offense. And you mentioned Janocko. That is something. Reader asked the other day about what they're doing to develop Spencer Rattler. And I think that is something that's really important to Janocko. They said that in the offseason. Klint Kubiak really harped on that again yesterday. That's a passion of Janocko's, is taking these young quarterbacks. He said during special teams practices, he takes them out there on the field. He said he's with them early in the day. He's with them after practice. It's a passion of Janocko's, and it was a passion of this staff's to not let the young quarterbacks get left behind. So that is another thing I liked seeing from this staff, and obviously I would like to see from the next one too, with the young quarterbacks or Rattler in particular.
They didn't get the results they wanted, but they even went in the cooler.
They went in the cooler, man. that turned out to be a mistake. Mocked relentlessly, but that's what happens when you don't get results.
Ochsner Hospital for Orthopedics and Sports Medicine on Clearview Parkway is celebrating 5 years of exceptional achievements. The hospital's integrated team has successfully performed over 20,000 surgeries using the latest in cutting-edge technology. With nationally recognized services and impactful partnerships, they continue to lead the advancement of orthopedic and sports medicine care in our region.
Rouse's Markets is voted best grocery store in New Orleans, best grocery store in Baton Rouge, Mississippi, Gulf Coast, Thibodaux, Houma, Hammond, Lake Charles, Mobile, year after year. Thank you for choosing us best grocery store on the Gulf Coast. Number one. Thank you.
Thank you.
The number one grocery store
In Mississippi, Alabama,
Louisiana. 1 million customers a week can't be wrong. Welcome to Rouse's.
The NewOrleans.Football show is proudly presented by PJ's Coffee. PJ's Coffee has some of the best drinks that you can find. They have locations all over the city. They have pastries and everything else you need to get your day started. So go check them out. NewOrleans.Football is proudly sponsored by Urban South Brewery, the makers of Paradise Park Lager. I love supporting local breweries, and when looking for a refreshing, easy drinking beer, I always recommend Paradise Park. In fact, I think it might be the best game day beer out there. If you want something a little lighter, try Paradise Light. It's everything I love about Paradise Park with just 96 calories and 2.6 carbs. And if you're looking for a family-friendly place to watch the game, I'd recommend Urban South's Tap Room in the Lower Garden District. They've got 15 TVs, 30 unique beers on tap, and mouth-watering urban smash burgers. The whole family will want to make Urban South their new living room, because at Urban South, they take laid back seriously. Looking for the best insurance coverage at the lowest price? Look no further than Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency. They are a local independent insurance agency right here in New Orleans, specializing in home, flood, and auto insurance. At Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, their dedicated team will shop every available carrier in the market, ensuring you get the most comprehensive coverage at the lowest possible price. Why settle for less when you can have the best? Trust Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, to protect what matters most to you. I do. I've been a client of theirs since 2021. Call them today at 504-326-6526 or visit them online at Protected by Chabert. That's 504-326-6526. Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, your local insurance experts. Hard Hide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. Blended in New Orleans, it is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. NewOrleans.Football is proud to be sponsored by Firehouse Subs. Make sure you check out their location on Veterans Boulevard. Attention Saints fans, don't let pests and termites invade your home field. Trust the team at Red Pest Solutions to tackle those unwelcome visitors. Call the Red Man today for unbeatable pest and termite control. Score peace with no pest. Visit redpest.com, REDDPEST.com.
Welcome back to the Oshner Andrews Sports Medicine Institute podcast studio here on Veterans Memorial Boulevard. It is now time for our next segment presented by Urban South. We have a game to talk about.
I almost left this one out.
There is that, we still have a game to talk about. Don't know much to say, but which matchups matter most in Saints at Bucs?
I don't really have anything to contribute to this topic. I really don't. I don't care. I'm gonna watch the game. I care about seeing some of the guys, but matchup wise, Vita Vea is probably gonna eat them up inside. They got a good offensive line, so there's not gonna be any pass rush. Mike Evans will get his 85 yards. I just don't. I can't. I can't.
I think it would be an interesting topic if this was a game that mattered. Do the Saints still have any mastery over Mike Evans, even without Marshawn Lattimore? But then Dennis Allen's not here anymore. It's a different defense in some ways now. So that's not even relevant. Is there something about Mike Evans just seeing these colors and he turns to stone? It'll be really interesting if he can somehow miss out on his 1,000-yard season for the first time because he just can't do it against the Saints. But this is also the only segment in today's show where we're going to talk about anything game-related, and that includes Spencer Rattler. I mean, is this an important showcase for him in any way once again?
If we take it outside of the matchup with the Bucs, sure. Spencer Rattler matters. I think building on that momentum, he's going to continue to audition for the next coaching staff. So I think that's important. I don't think that he's shown you anything that says he is the starter, but he hasn't shown you enough to say he isn't the starter either. And this is the last chance to kind of make that case. So huge game for him, huge showcase for him. I think it's a big game for Clyde Edwards-Helaire with Alvin Kamara out. I think he's going to have an opportunity to show a lot. Alvin's not going to play this week. So I think that's important too. He's trying to keep his place here. So that's important. I don't think Kendre is going to play probably, right? I mean, he hasn't practiced all week, so he's done. Chris Olave is not going to play, so we're going to see the other receivers in this game. So it's important for all them backups trying to get that futures contract to stick around, to get a chance to be, part of the future of this team. Yeah, I mean, I'm not putting great importance on anything else except for, it's straight up like third preseason game territory where it's like, is this guy going to make the team? Like that's where you're kind of at with this.
Yeah.
The previous matchup, I remembered that the Saints were winning the game with 20 minutes left. The Saints were winning. They lost 51-27. I remembered that. I did not remember the Saints scored 27 points in the second quarter. You guys remember that? 27 points in one quarter. But the other thing I remember is just the embarrassment of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers running backs.
That's where I'm going.
Steamrolling the Saints defense.
Let me take it. Hand it off. All right, so Sean Tucker has only rushed for over 50 yards in one game this season. You might not even know who Sean Tucker is. Sean Tucker was the guy who, took out the razor blade and was cutting them up, 1,000 cuts. He's only rushed for 50 plus yards in one game this season, and it was against the Saints when he rushed for
9.7 yards a carry.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, bro, come on, man, we gotta. Something got to happen.
In a lot of ways, it was the darkest moment of the whole season to me. This wasn't it was a week later when the Richard Sherman did the defense is playing like they're trying to get their coach fired, but it started with that week 6 game, and it really hasn't stopped. We saw missed tackles again last week. I'd love to maybe see the defense be like, hey, we only have to play for one more week. Let's tackle some players, but with Tampa Bay needing this to win the division, I'll take the over on rushing yards again. Man, that was a low point of this season. Holy cow, Sean Tucker.
Yeah.
People can see him in their nightmares. I think he was the offensive player of the week after that.
Crazy. Going back to what Nick said, though, about just this being one of those, hey, remember me whenever you're thinking about people games. That's what it is. It's like, all right, like if I'm Kevin Austin Jr., if I'm some of these other people, remember me. Don't forget about me in the offseason. Remember when I came in and contributed to this middle of the team.
Hey, look, Matthew Hayball did that last week. I'll give him credit.
Yeah.
I've been super, super down on Matthew Hayball. He had his best game of the season in week 17. If he has his 2 best games of the season in week 17, week 18, that's something that can matter.
Right. Now, even going back to kind of what he said in the last segment about this being one of the worst offensive casts to kind of work with, I was watching the Patriots and Chargers game, and they were like, the Patriots might have the worst offensive unit in football. And then I was like, I've been watching these Saints games if y'all think that right now. So we'll see, man. They have hope, because they have Drake May and stuff like that. The Saints, you don't know what their situation is going to be going forward. But let's roll into our next topic presented by the Louisiana Lottery. Nick, you talked about the role that Clyde Edwards-Helaire probably will have going into this game. You wrote an article on the website. You all can check that out, detailing how Edwards-Helaire kind of has came home and is trying to make something happen. But could Edwards-Helaire find a future in New Orleans?
I think he's worth keeping around. He's someone with upside. You got to have 90 guys on your team going into camp. Like I think he's smart. He's picked it up quick. 5 carries, 20 yards, 2 catches, 10 yards. If he has another good game this week, I would absolutely keep him around as somebody that could potentially be a player that contributes. He's shown the talent in the NFL. He's had 1,000-yard season. His rookie year was really good. Mm-hmm. So I would keep him around. He ain't going to cost a lot. A good guy, good locker room guy, talented player, and he can block, he can catch, he can run. Like, he's a solid guy to have on your roster, and there might be some upside there. So I would absolutely be open to keeping him around. He's not blocking anyone else's spot, and he definitely is someone that, look, if he could be on the roster and be around a Super Bowl team, he can definitely be around the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah. Yeah, and he mentioned that, not there's a lot of other things he said that are definitely worth checking out in that story. But, he pointed out, LSU and the Chiefs, like that's all he's been around.
Yeah.
What's interesting about him is we've been talking so much about, this season's over. Let's start playing the young guys and seeing what they have for next year. Here's a case of it. He showed up. They said, he's a guy we've always had our eye on. We're kind of curious. We just want to get a up-close look at him. And they're like, You're the guy. I mean, a week earlier, Jordan Mims got a ton of touches, inactive. Jamal Williams, obviously, experienced veteran. They're like, no, we want to take a look at Edwards-Helaire. And I think we're going to see the same again this week. Maybe daily fantasy. Is he the cheapest running back in the world? Based on what they've done over the last week, I mean, he might get like a lead back kind of look in this game. And that makes me think they're serious about taking a look at him, although totally new coaching staff, totally new offense next year, some new decision makers. I have no idea. But I do think it's interesting that they add a guy in week 17 and decide right away to take an extended look at him.
Who ends up being the Saints' third leading rusher? Right now, it is currently Jamal Williams with 149 yards. Kendra Miller has 148. We don't expect him to play. Spencer Rattler has 135.
Rattler.
Ooh, wait, what's Edwards-Helaire have?
20.
Yeah, he's not close. He's not up there.
So if Rattler, let's say Rattler doesn't scramble in this game, Edwards-Helaire just needs like 120 yards.
So
it's Rattler.
You think it'll be Rattler?
It's Rattler. I think it's going to be Rattler. I can't.
You think he bypasses Jamal?
For sure. I don't think Jamal's going to get a lot of run in this game.
All right, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know what it's going to look like. I think Jamal gets a good amount of run. He's going to have to. He's going to have to.
Yeah, fair.
You can hand the ball off to him, but he has to get the yards.
Yeah, but I mean, if he got like 20, like he probably.
Okay. So wait, Rattler's 11 behind Jamal right now?
Jamal is up 14 on him. So if you got like 20, 25 yards, like that becomes pretty tough.
I'll take Rattler as the leading rusher in this game, though, for sure. Rattler. Well, I'll take Edwards-Helaire as the leading rusher in this game. Rattler second, Jamal third.
Okay.
For the original question, I'm going with Rattler. Roster-wise, I don't think we've really talked about this. Roster-wise, strictly roster-wise, the Saints have slowly started becoming Chiefs East. Tyrann Mathieu, Colin Saunders, Willie Gay, Marquez Valdez, Tano Passanio, MVS, because he never really played in
I'm going
Buffalo.
Rattler.
Thank you.
He had 46 yards last week.
He's not going to not be running for his life again.
So 46 against the Raiders, 28 against the Packers, 34 against the Broncos, 27 against the Bucs. I think I'll go Rattler. He needs like 50, I think, to get it, but I'm going Rattler.
Sure, but he showed you that in the first preseason game. That first touchdown, it wasn't a passing touchdown. He was scrambling. Hit the goal line.
That was planned, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going with Rat on that. Lock it in.
Total Maintenance is one of the largest locally owned home and commercial service providers in South Louisiana and serve the greater New Orleans and Baton Rouge markets. They have a membership program that gets you 2 tune-up visits for AC and heating, as well as club membership discounts of 15% on all repairs, half off of all diagnostic charges, and 3-year warranties on most repairs for membership clients. This is usually priced at the low price of $24.95 a month per system, but if you tell Total Maintenance that you found them through NOF, they'll lower the price to $20.95 per month per system for as long as you keep the membership active. Services include AC and heating, service and replacement, electrical service, plumbing service, as well as generator service and installation. They are Total Maintenance. Find them at tm-ac.com or give them a call at 504-841-3300, or if you're in the Baton Rouge area, 225-480-1000. Martin's is your go-to destination for everything merry and bright this holiday season. From an unmatched selection of bourbon, whiskeys, and wines to gourmet food, gift baskets, and catering, Martin's has all your holiday needs covered. Family owned and operated since 1946, Martin's knows the perfect ways to celebrate this season with loved ones. Visit them in Metairie, New Orleans, or Baton Rouge, or shop online for the ultimate convenience. Whether you're raising a glass or looking for the perfect holiday gift, make it an easy and cheerful holiday with Martin's.
Score big with Saints Score. Win up to $100,000. Enter the second chance drawings for cool Saints prize packages. Play Saints Score scratch-offs from the lottery.
Whether you are a local New Orleanian or a fan in town for the game, get your pre- and post-game fired up at Aaron Rose. Local chaos and local love for the black and gold. Wake up and live with daily drink specials, mimosas, screwdrivers, Bloody Marys, and hot or frozen Irish coffees, all just $3 or $4 between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Aaron Rose, half a block from Bourbon Street in the French Quarter, 811 Conti Street.
Welcome to the Queen Casino, where entertainment meets unparalleled customer service. From our days on the water to our new land experience overlooking the Mississippi River, our dedicated staff is here to ensure your visit is nothing short of exceptional. Whether you are coming or going, our well-lit parking lot and security team provide guests with red carpet treatment. Our security team keeps watch so you can focus on fun and fortune. From table to table, our attentive staff is here to serve up the ultimate experience. Join us at the Queen Casino. Your royal adventure awaits.
Welcome back to the Oshner Andrews Sports Medicine Institute podcast studio for the Martin Wine and Spirits questions of the day. Martin's is home to a wide selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and more. Martin's so much more than just wine. Today's first question is, would the best of bad options be to run it back next year with Rizzi and Carr?
Nick's mentioned this a couple times. Kevin mentioned it again. The thinking behind this is right now the Saints' job is so unattractive. We said ESPN's Bill Barnwell ranked it last of 9 possible coaching openings. We can make an argument over at least it's a ownership structure you'd rather work for than someone like the Jets or Raiders if they come open maybe. But they're 7th out of 9 if that's true. And maybe if they clean up the cap a little, maybe if they have a better draft pick next year, you can hire a better coach. That would be the theory behind this for me. I will say on the flip side, though, there might only be 6 coaching openings this year. There might only be 7. If you want Aaron Glenn, you can get Aaron Glenn. If you want Brian Flores, you can get Brian Flores. Well, maybe not for sure. But, you can still get a good coach this year. So I don't know that I keep Rizzi just because, I'm sure I get a better coach next year than I get this year.
The phrase here that matters is bad options. Bad options would be that you're on the other side of that, Aaron Glenn Flores kind of equation, assuming that, Mike Vrabel and Pete Carroll are kind of and Ben Johnson are kind of the top guys. And then, so if there were 9 openings and you are
you're really ninth. Yeah. You're hiring Dave Canales or whatever.
Or Liam Cohen or something. Yeah. I think if you're on the wrong side of that equation, it's just man, I'm not excited about the options I have here. What do I do? Do I hire this guy or do I just kind of try to hold the fort for a year, see if Rizzi can turn it around? If he doesn't, we hit the market next year. I think if it were that you are actually 9 of 9, and you can't get anyone, then yeah, I think I would rather stick with the guy that I have than knowingly hire a Doug coach. But I don't think it's gonna be that bad. I don't think it's gonna be 9 spots. I don't think you are 9 of 9. I think they're gonna be able to hire somebody that they feel good about. And yeah, just kind of holding the fort would be, if you just don't feel great. And it's not out of the realm of possibility. I just don't think 9 jobs are going to open up.
The other reason to do something like this is if you really are going to bottom out. We've talked all the time about a coach wouldn't want to be behind the total bottom out. No Carr, no DeMario, no Tyron, no Cam. Your team is just losing, and it just feels like losing, and it's infected by losing. You don't want that to be your first year on the job. So you make Rizzi deal with that, and then the new coach gets to come in when you're back on the upswing. But God, I would just be so surprised to see the Saints take that approach and to do it by saying, "Hey, Rizzi, we've decided this is going to be a terrible year, and we're letting everyone go, so we're keeping you and firing you at the end of it." It's one of those. It's just like tanking itself. It's one of those that's better in theory than it is in actual practice.
Facts. That's big Plan Z energy, the last on the list that you want to do. So let's roll into our next question. In hindsight, for a 2024 redraft, what do you think the Saints do? Just to go over it again, Tali Fuaga, 1st round, Kool-Aid McKinstry, 2nd round, Spencer Rattler, Bud Means, Jalen Ford, 5th round, Christian Boyd, 6th round, and Josiah Ezram, 7th round.
Well, I need to know if hindsight means we get to know what all these players looked like, because in that case, I'd take Jared Verse, and I'd think strongly about Brock Bowers. Would they have had to trade up to get Brock Bowers? Was he one pick in front of them?
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah.
So obviously you would consider those, but if they don't draft Tali Fuaga, and we all agreed that an offensive tackle was such a huge need, then offensive tackle would be just a staggering need right now. So those players are better than Fuaga, but I like drafting a left tackle last year and starting him all 17 games as a rookie. is high on the list of one or two things this team needed to do, and he still has a chance to be a successful pick, even though he didn't necessarily break out in year one. So in hindsight, I'd rather have Jared Verse or Brock Bowers because I know how good those players are, but I don't have a problem with the pick the Saints made in hindsight.
Give me Verse. Give me Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah.
Brock Bowers for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's probably a few different ways that I would go with it, but I would definitely take Bowers, Verse, and Brian Thomas over him. Probably Quinion Mitchell, given where they're at. Yeah. What did Byron Murphy do this year? Did he do anything? Oh, give me Bo Nix. Oh, Bo Nix went before. He went 2 picks before.
They would have to trade
Bowers went before too. So yeah, definitely Verse or Brian Thomas or Quinion Mitchell would be the guys for me.
Yeah, if they did not draft, I mean, remember it was the 6 offensive tackles that all went in the top 20.
Yeah, fashionable enough.
And so that was a draft class to try and take advantage of that. I mean, it would just be such a must. It would blind the rest of what they need in this year's draft class if they didn't do that. What about Bowers specifically? They have so many problems on this team. Like, is Bowers the build around guy, or is that a luxury?
No, I think Bowers is a build around guy.
Do you think he'll ever raise the?
You see how bad the Raiders are and how the season that he's had in the midst of that.
But I'm just playing devil's advocate. I mean, he's a special player. Yeah, if you have a Kelsey or a Gronk, you take him. Yeah,
for sure, no question about it. I mean, even like the Raiders are statistically worse than the Saints, but like Brock Bowers still was the premier player to watch last.
He's got you thinking Aiden O'Connell could be okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So like the man has a set of powers that is hard to come by. For sure. That'll do it for this edition of NewOrleans.Football. We appreciate those who are subscribed. Those who aren't subscribed, make sure you get in that number because we're going to have stuff coming for you the entire offseason. Make sure you keep up with everything Saints by subscribing to NewOrleans.Football. Catch you next time.